Today, we're digging into the hidden architecture of education. We're talking about the philosophical foundations that pretty much decide everything: what subjects you study, how you're taught, the whole deal. So let's jump right in. Have you ever just, stopped and wondered why school is set up the way it is? I mean, why did you have to take calculus, but art was an elective? It can feel a little random, right? But it's not. There's actually a deep, underlying logic to all of it, kind of like an invisible operating system running in the background. And that operating system? It's philosophy. The best way to think about it is like an architectural blueprint for a school. The famous educator John Dewey basically said that philosophy gives a school its entire framework, its goals, its methods, everything. It really is the starting point that determines all the rest. So here's what we're going to do. First, we'll unpack that whole blueprint idea. Then, we'll dive into 4 foundational worldviews that have shaped education as we know it. After that, we'll see how that big picture theory actually translates to the classroom, check out 4 specific philosophies in action, and wrap up by asking, which blueprint is yours? All right, so let's get into the blueprint itself. See, philosophy isn't just some abstract debate for academics. In the world of education, it's incredibly practical. It's the very first set of decisions you have to make before you can even think about things like textbooks or class schedules. Every single curriculum out there is built on the answers to these huge questions. I mean, what are schools for? Are they here to pass down timeless truths, or are they meant to help us solve today's problems? Is chemistry more important than music? Do we learn best by listening to a lecture or by getting our hands dirty? Your answer to each of these questions reveals your philosophy. Okay, so to really get how those questions get answered, we need to look at the major worldviews that have shaped Western education. Think of these like the core operating systems, like Windows or Mac OS, that all the different educational blueprints run on. And to get to the heart of each of these worldviews, we can ask 3 really simple but really deep questions. First, what is real? Like, what's the fundamental nature of existence? Second, what is true? How do we even know what we know? And third, what is good? What are the values we should live by? The answers to these 3 questions define, well, everything. All right, first up, we have idealism. This is one of the oldest and most influential worldviews out there. For idealists, the most real and important thing isn't the physical world around us, but the world inside our heads, the world of ideas. So, for an idealist, reality is all about the mind, spirit, and reason. Truth isn't something you find using a microscope. It's something you find by looking inward, using logic and intuition. And values, like justice or beauty, are absolute and timeless. So it's no shock that an idealist curriculum is all about the classics, the great books, and subjects that train the mind to think about these big, enduring ideas. Now, let's do a complete 180. In direct contrast to idealism, we've got realism. And realists believe that reality exists completely independent of our minds, out there in the physical, tangible world. To a realist, the world is made of actual, observable stuff that follows predictable, natural laws. So how do we get knowledge? Not through introspection, but through our 5 senses, by observing, measuring, and categorizing the physical world. Values are found in the patterns of nature. So, a realist curriculum is all about the essentials: reading, writing, and arithmetic, plus a heavy dose of science. Anything that teaches us to understand the objective world. Okay, onto our third worldview, pragmatism. This one is a uniquely American philosophy, and it takes a much more, practical and dynamic view of things. A pragmatist would say that reality isn't some fixed thing just sitting out there. Reality is our experience. It's what happens when we interact with the world. And that means knowledge isn't about uncovering some ancient truth. It's a tool for solving today's problems. For a pragmatist, an idea is true if it works. Simple as that. This way of thinking leads straight to a curriculum built on hands-on learning, group projects, and learning by doing. And that brings us to our 4th and final worldview, existentialism. Now, if pragmatism is all about what works for the group, existentialism is laser-focused on the individual. Existentialists argue that we're basically thrown into a world that has no built-in meaning. So reality is subjective. We each define it through our own choices. Knowledge isn't something we discover, it's something we create through our personal interpretations. And values? We each have to choose our own. It's a huge responsibility. An existentialist curriculum, then, is going to emphasize the arts, literature, and philosophy, any subject that helps a student explore what it means to be human and forge their own path. Now, just take a look at this table for a second. When you see it all laid out side by side like this, you can really see the fundamental clashes, can't you? Is reality in our minds or in the material world? Is truth something we discover or something we create? Are values universal or totally personal? I mean, these are the battle lines that are drawn in just about every debate about education. Okay, so we've got these four huge worldviews, but how do they actually make their way into a school's mission statement or a teacher's lesson plan? Let's zoom in a little bit on our blueprint and see how these big ideas get translated into specific educational philosophies. So you can basically sort these educational philosophies into two big camps. On one side, you have the traditional philosophies, like perennialism and essentialism. These are deeply rooted in those older worldviews, idealism and realism. For them, a school's job is to pass on the culture and teach crucial, time-tested knowledge. And on the other side, you've got the contemporary philosophies, like progressivism and reconstructionism. These grow out of pragmatism, and they see schools' role as more dynamic. It's about helping individuals grow and making society better. And now for the really fun part. Let's see what these four specific philosophies, these four different blueprints, actually look like in the real world. What's the difference between a school run by a perennialist and one run by a progressivist? This table right here is the ultimate cheat sheet. So you've got perennialism, which wants to sharpen the intellect using the great books. The teacher is a master thinker. Then there's essentialism, which focuses on making a competent person using the 3 R's and core subjects. The teacher is the expert in the room. Then you have progressivism, which wants to promote democracy through student-led projects. The teacher is more of a guide or a coach. And finally, reconstructionism, which aims to literally remake society by tackling social problems head-on. And the teacher is an agent for change. So, we've gone all the way from these really abstract worldviews to what's actually happening in a classroom. And that kind of brings the focus right back around to us, to teachers, parents, students, anyone who has a stake in education. You know, as our sources point out, understanding all this stuff isn't just some academic game. Knowing your own personal philosophy, knowing what you really believe about reality and knowledge and values, that's empowering. It lets you make choices that are conscious and consistent, whether you're designing a state curriculum or just helping your kid with homework. It gives you a compass to navigate by. So when it comes right down to it, we all have a philosophy that we operate from, whether we've put a name on it or not. Now that you've seen the blueprints laid out, the real question is, which one are you building with? What do you think school is really for? And that's our look at the philosophical foundations of curriculum. If you want to dive even deeper into any of these blueprints, I highly recommend checking out the sources we used for this explainer. Thanks so much for watching.